The Talksport Fan Network.
The ultimate on-demand destination for the UK's best fan-led football podcasts.
Want authentic supporter insight on all things Bournemouth? Follow Up the Cherries in all departments on the Talksport Fan Network.
Club-dedicated content created by the fans, for the fans.
Search Talksport Fan Network.
Welcome back to Up the Cherries in all departments of the entire Premier League, and this is our tier list show. So we did this last year. What we'll do is we'll have a quick review of what we actually put, but we're going to do it again, and we're going to debate where we think that all the teams are going to finish. Of course, I've got two men beside me. If you've been watching this show for a long period of time, you'll know who they are. Of course, I've got my co-host, Matt Harrison. How you doing, Matt?
Yeah, all good, Craig. Looking forward to this.
Excellent stuff, excellent stuff. And, of course, we've got the man in the know, Manny. How you doing, mate?
All good, thank you, mate. Looking forward to this. And, I know a lot of people are very eager for the Premiership season to start. Most of them saying, thank God for club football. International football's a real pain in the rear end.
Mm-hmm.
I will never be one of those people, but it's good to see the Premiership resume and a lot more storylines, a lot more potential controversies. Can't wait.
Exactly. And, of course, the Championship, League One and League Two have already kicked off. And for any Leeds fans watching, AFC Bournemouth may get a win before you do. So just keep that in mind. Leeds, we're expecting to win everything, weren't they? But let's be honest, they haven't won so far at all. But let's have a little review of what we got up to last season. And this is what it looks like. So we had the champions down as Arsenal, Man City second, Man United third, Liverpool fourth, Chelsea fifth, Newcastle sixth, Villa seventh. The bottom three we had down as Everton in 18th, Luton in 19th, and Sheffield United in 20th. So let's have a little bit of a review of what we thought. I personally, even though we've got the champions wrong, we've got a couple which are glaring differences. I don't think we've done too bad with this.
Not at all. Not at all. I think one thing where we did go slight wrong, the glaring one that you mentioned, Craig, was Aston Villa making it into the Champions League. And the biggest irony of that is, near the end of the season, they had a bit of a slump in form, injury-induced, it must be mentioned. But because Spurs also weren't able to get their act together, and ironically, we ended up having them finishing in mid-table, but they ended up finishing just outside the Champions League places. Because Spurs just weren't able to get their act together, they ended up missing out on the Champions League. And, of course, there was that controversy as well as to whether or not Spurs should have gone for the win against Manchester City to help Arsenal. Again, I defer to our dear friend Lokman Yunus Eugen, the Malaysian-based Spurs fan, who said on a stream of his, and I do hope that we'll get him back on the channel someday, because I think I can speak for all of us when I say that he is an absolute delight to talk to. He said that Spurs had their chances to try and secure Champions League football when they played against teams like Fulham and Newcastle and completely came a cropper. Mm-hmm. And of course, if they'd won those games, then they would have deserved top four. But since then, of course, Aston Villa have strengthened, mainly due to having had to get rid of Diaby and Douglas Luiz, I would say. And they've spent wisely as well. And Spurs under Postecoglou have also shown some promise. And I don't want to mention Spurs in the positive light, obviously, because of events that have taken place a few days ago. But just goes to show that you cannot underestimate teams like Villa and Spurs and expect to get away with it. But for the most part, if you take a look at everything, there's only a slight difference between our predictions and where everyone else ended up.
Bournemouth were just one better on our predictions than when we actually finished. At the start of the season, Matt, it looked like it was going to be completely out, didn't it? But we did turn it round. But when you look as well at the likes of Burnley, Burnley, I thought was going to stay up, but
Mm.
of course they got relegated. At times, playing some nice football. So it was so key how Andoni Iraola just changed it round and played managed to get that sexy football to work.
Yeah, it was always going to be a matter of time, wasn't it? And even when we were losing games, we were still playing well. We just needed that
Mm,
little thing to click in place, which it eventually did, and then we started picking up points. And obviously, he proved us, better than where we thought they were going to finish. Because, to be honest, I thought that was an improvement where we placed ourselves last season. So, yeah, it was always going to be a matter of time. I think his football's fantastic. His high
yeah,
press is, it's great. I love watching us play. And I know this whole argument of sexy football doesn't always win you games, but I like to watch good football, and that's what Iriola produces. So yeah, very looking forward to this season, and see what you can do now.
definitely. Well, this is how it actually finished last season. So, like we say, Luton, Burnley, and Sheffield United all went down. But when you compare this table against our predictions, apart from getting the champions wrong, and apart from getting one of the teams getting relegated wrong as well, we weren't far away, and we had the teams in the right category. But of course, this is this season's tier list, and let's get up. There we are. It's brand new. It's nice and fresh. And of course, every team is locked and loaded. Now, what I'll do is I'll just explain the rules of how this works. So each of us are going to go round in a round robin and we're going to pick teams where we get which we're going to place into this graph. We can move the teams around, dependent on if, say, for example, we have a debate and want to move a certain team down into the next category or even up. So it is entirely, our well, it builds a lot of debate as well, this sort of thing. But the good thing as well is we're not going to just go for Manchester City. We're not going to go for Arsenal at the start. We want to pick teams where there is going to be that debate, who are possibly going to be stuck in a relegation battle, but might actually get into the top half. Who knows? So that is the plan. Now, the first person we're going to start with, Matt, I think it's probably yourself. So you've got all the teams there. Well, you can see all the other three teams. Which team are you going to select to put into our tier list first?
West Ham.
West Ham United, of
The
course.
reason why I've picked West Ham is because I think they've had a really exciting transfer window, and they've signed some good players. So I think who else did they sign this week? They've signed Wan-Bissaka, haven't they, and a few
Yeah,
others. I think they're going to have a very, very good season. Where did they finish last year? Can't remember. Was it ninth?
yeah, ninth last season.
See, I
Ninth
could
last
see
season.
them. I could see them pushing for a Europa League place this year.
Well, I don't think you're going to be that far away, but I think they're going to miss out on it. Personally, Manny, where can you see West Ham this season?
Probably, in the definitely in the top half, but I don't really see them improving too much on their ninth place finish last season. I know obviously there's been talk about how, with David Moyes now no more
Mm,
at the club, West Ham could go back to the football that they've aspired to play for seasons on end. I just don't necessarily know if Lopetegui is going to be the person who will do that. And obviously, he's brought in his former Wolves charge, Kilman, as is seen on the list.
yeah,
And there are a lot of players, of course, who will come in, but how they're going to settle will remain to be seen. And they've also got a pretty tough assignment against Aston Villa, who will be coming over to the London Stadium. And that's going to start things off for them. I think it'll take some time for Lopetegui to really sort of stamp his mark on the team and really start to get them playing really well. And he's going to have to depend a lot on the current core of players that are already there at the club, the likes of Antonio and Bowen and Ward-Prowse, who all had pretty good seasons last season. They could challenge for a Europa League place, but I think they're just going to finish a little bit short. I've got them finishing in the top half of the table quite comfortably, though.
I've got them there as well. Matt, do you think they'll get into that European place, 5 to 7, or do you reckon top half?
Yeah, let's place them 5 to 7 for now.
Okay.
5 to 7
for now, and then we always move people about, don't we, as we go through?
Yes.
So, yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they'll probably fall into the top half positions myself, but let's place them where you think they're going to be at the moment. So 5 to 7. Manny, I'll let you pick the next team. Who do you reckon? Who are you picking next in our tier list? So there's West Ham. They're in.
Okay, well, I might as well start by picking one of the teams, of course, that we were talking about on the last stream, talking about which of these teams would have a chance of staying up and which would go down. And I am going to go for Ipswich Town. Now, you take a look at Ipswich. Obviously, the recent update is that the Manchester City and, for now, former England midfielder Calvin Phillips has joined the club on a season-long loan deal. So that's an opportunity for him to get some first-team football. And several of these players obviously have, done really well for Ipswich in the championship and the lower leagues. And the thing about a club like Ipswich is that, of course, they didn't, unlike Luton Town last season, they didn't really struggle to get in. They were promoted, obviously, as the second-placed team in the championship, finishing second behind the Leicester team that eventually got its act together not a moment too soon. And the thing about this team is that they definitely have give the impression that their whole is greater than the sum of their parts. And it will be interesting it will be sort of welcoming to see them coming back into the Premiership as one of the founder members, of course. And whenever they've come in, they've always provided some good football and some good storylines. They've probably given the impression, I suppose, of being a team that isn't quite able to, withstand their challenge because they just don't have enough in terms of money. But this time around, I'm looking forward to seeing them playing some really good football, better football than Luton did, and really showing why they are a fine team. Whether or not they will stay up will remain to be seen. I actually think that they will, really impress a lot of people, and they could end up just making it. And I have them finishing 17th.
Do you know what? This is a very, very interesting one. I'm pleased that you've picked Ipswich because, of course, I interviewed Omid Dalachi, the comedian. Absolutely fantastic video. Loved doing it. Of course, he is originally a Chelsea fan, but has moved to the area. And one of the big things for Ipswich is momentum. And they've gone from League One, from getting promoted in League One to the Championship, and that momentum has carried on. But what Kieran McKenna has done as well is he's improved the side in particular places. And I personally think that that is going to carry them through as well. Matt, do you think that Ipswich will stay up, or do you think it's a foregone conclusion that they're going back down?
Now, sum it up very, very quickly. They're going to stay up. I agree
Mhm.
with Manny 17th, all in that bracket on our tier list. So between 15th and 17th, I definitely agree with that. I think the manager's great, really rate him. I rate him as a coach and I rate him as a man manager. And I think they've got the belief in the team, similar to the belief that Bournemouth had when we first got promoted to the Premier League all those years ago and proved everybody wrong by staying up. So I think they will stay up.
Personally, I agree with both of you. I'm actually going. I'm being a bit bolder. I would go 16th. I don't think they'll go into the other category of
No.
the bottom half, just surviving, but they will be happy with that without a shadow of a doubt. So Ipswich Town, I personally think will stay up, and we all agree on that. Um, so it's my turn to pick a side, and my side that I am picking is going to be Everton. Why have I picked Everton? I'll tell you what. I picked him for certain reasons. Firstly, Sean Dyche, love him or hate him, he's a bloody good manager that gets the best out of players. He really is. Um, they have had a lot of question marks over a couple of players. I think they bought well as well. During this window, um, sensibly. They've not been extravagant, but sensibly. Um, my main concern with Everton is what happens when Dyche decides to call it a day there, or when they get bored of him. Because they are building a side into a particular way, which is the Dyche Ball way. Um, you know, Braithwaite is that was such an important, that's almost as important as getting a new signing, keeping him, Jared Braithwaite. So personally, I think Everton's a very interesting one. I predicted that they were going to go down last season because of all the troubles. Those troubles still exist, but you got to take your hat off to Sean Dyche. He's done a fantastic job there.
Hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I've got them in my head finishing not probably too dissimilar to last season. I don't think they'd be right in the relegation scrap, but maybe
Hmm.
sort of 14th kind of area. I think they will probably finish. Like you say, Dyche, good solid manager, isn't he? He's one for keeping you in the league. I think they've improved the squad definitely.
Yeah.
But it all depends, doesn't it? If they do keep hold of certain players in this transfer window as well, doesn't it? Obviously, still 2 weeks or so to go on the transfer window at the moment, isn't there? So depends on who they keep. But I think I agree with you. They've brought in well.
Hmm.
Um, and Calvert Lewin, if he stays and he needs to stay fit and score goals for him, they will probably finish maybe slightly better than that. But I think at the moment, I'm thinking 13th, 14th kind of placing.
Manny, do you think that Everton could get a little bit higher than that, or do you think they could be in relegation trouble? Because I've got my own thoughts on Everton. I think they're going to be bouncing between the two categories, so the top half and the bottom half categories. So I reckon 10th, 11th place. Do you think I'm mad to get put them that high, or do you think that sounds about right for you?
I would never ever consider you to be insane, Mr. Beasley, so do not ask that question ever again. I will say, though, that they have made some decent activity. There has been sort of
Mhm.
kind of an understanding, really, between themselves and Aston Villa. They gave the Birmingham side Amadou Onana and have taken a couple of players from the Clarets in return. But here's the thing about Everton, though. I mean, without Onana in that midfield, you just wonder if they're going to have that same level of cohesion and consistency. And I just get the feeling, really, that in as much as Dyche is a good manager who can keep teams up, there's also a reason why you can't really expect him to do very much with this Everton team. In some ways, he did overachieve with Burnley when, in one season, I think he got them into Europe, but that was pretty much as good as it got for him. And I just think again that with Everton, they're always going to be in line for a struggle because, other teams are just going to take a look at them and say, you know what, we just don't fear you anymore. And although Everton did get their act together near the end of last season, you got the feeling that they did enough to ensure their survival. I have them sort of finishing in the middle of the bottom half of the table. They certainly won't be in a relegation scrap. I like Matthew's prediction of 14th. And that could very well be where they end up, because there are going to be several other teams in the Premiership that are going to be fighting hard to avoid relegation. And I think Everton might just have enough about them to finish 14th, or they could finish 15th, but we'll go with 14th for now and see how the other teams do.
I think, yeah, I'm thinking that bottom half category. But Matt, do you think that's fair?
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I think it's your pick. Who are you going with?
Your mate.
My mate Gary.
Yeah, I think they've, you know, they've got some good players still, but I think they've lost some key ones. Obviously, Kilman and Neto. Was it? They've lost Neto now as well to Chelsea.
Yeah, they have. Yeah.
Two big players for them. I think Gary O'Neill done a great job last season because he had a hell of a lot of injuries there, didn't he?
Yeah.
But I think this season might be tougher.
Yeah.
For them. First one, I think, of the night, but I think this is a side that potentially will get relegated.
Oh, do you know what? This is.
You won't agree with me because you love the guy, but
Yeah.
I think potentially this is one that is it could be one of the existing Premier League sides that go.
No. I honestly think they will stay up. I think Wolves will stay up. I personally reckon as well they'll push themselves into that category, maybe alongside Everton. Honestly, mate, I do. Manny, let's let you have the define it, because I kind of know where Matt is going with this now. I've got an inkling. Are Wolves going to be in those 3 relegation places for you, or do you agree with me?
They're not going to be in those 3 relegation places, Craig. Don't worry about that. I think Gary O'Neill has definitely, improved a great deal as a manager. He's one manager who always aspires to learn and improve. And, it's going to be a challenge for him to try and manage this Wolves team without Kilman and without Neto and a few others. But the impression I've got from him is that he has a knack of being able to find a way. Now, where they end up will remain to be seen. It could very well be that they will end up struggling a little bit without those players, but there's something about them, in my opinion. I think they'll have enough to avoid the relegation. I actually could, though, have them finishing no higher than 15th in the just. So it's not so bad per se. It's in the tier above relegation, but high enough to suggest that with a little bit of luck, they could have ended up finishing even higher. And that's how much I rate Gary O'Neill as a manager too. So, he has a few off days every now and then, but for the most part, we've seen him really do as well as he has. And I'll have them 15th for now, and then we can, we'll come back to it later. But I agree with you; they're not going to get relegated. There are maybe 1 or 2 other teams, existing teams, that I think could get relegated, and we will come to them definitely.
So, Manny's made the call. Wolves, I think they go into that just surviving category for me at this moment in time, based on what you've said, based on what Matt said. Let's put them next to Ipswich, but like I say, we can move all of these around. But Manny, it's your turn next. Who are you picking?
Crystal Palace.
Crystal Palace. That's a very, very interesting selection, actually. Go on, Manny. Take it away. Take it away. What do you think of Palace for next season?
first of all, let me start by saying well done to Oliver Glasner. After replacing Roy Hodgson, he's done an absolutely brilliant job with the team. And I keep thinking to myself, a manager of his pedigree, a Europa League winner with Eintracht Frankfurt, why couldn't we have gotten our hands on a guy like him? And how could Crystal Palace have gotten him? Those lucky, lucky Eagles. And, obviously they still don't quite have Zaha, and, the loss of Elise will obviously hurt them. But again, it's just the way that Glasner has gone about things and how he's been able to make sure they, really play very well. I think their performance against Manchester United at Selhurst Park in the second half of the season was absolutely brilliant. And of course, they crushed a much changed Aston Villa, who had by then secured Champions League football on the final day of the season. And they've shown really how well they can play under him. And I have them. This is a team for me that should be able to challenge for the European places. And I could have them. It's going to be difficult to predict where they'll finish in a way, because I don't know if they will finish in the top 7. But I'm going to take a plunge here and say that they could finish as high as 8th, because they're going to give Europe a real go. And Glasner obviously will want to try to make sure that his team continue to punch above their weight and play really well. It will be interesting to see what the finalized squad will look like. And like who's going to be in goal, for instance. Will Sam Johnson recover in time to reclaim his spot as the number 1, or will it be Dean Henderson, or will it be someone else? What other ingoings and outgoings have there been? To be honest, I haven't kept much track on that. But the reason why I predict that they will do well is primarily because of the manager. He's absolute quality, got fine pedigree, and has taken to the job literally like a duck to water. Of course, we said the same thing about Patrick Vieira. That's right. My former legend, Patrick Vieira, did well in his first season, but then struggled a bit. But I think Glasner's got a much bigger pedigree, obviously, than the ex-Arsenal captain, and I think they'll finish 8th.
Yeah, I totally agree with Manny, to be honest. I think the manager's a fantastic manager. He's got a great pedigree. I mean, what a coup for Palace. Obviously, Roy Hodgson left, under not great circumstances, but what a coup to get a manager of this caliber. And I think he's only going to improve. And I totally agree with Manny. Anywhere between, for me, 10th and 8th, I think they're going to finish. They're definitely going to be pushing sides this season.
They're going to be an interesting one for me, to be honest. And as you can tell, actually, I have actually got myself an ice cream here. This is a bit of a novelty, but my dad is actually an ice cream man, so yeah, just dropped off an ice cream for me.
Nice.
Okay, that's
No chance you can drop one down at Bournemouth and drop one over to India.
Yeah, but it's a biscoffy one. Honestly, it's gorgeous. It's really, really nice. But more onto that. I think Crystal Palace. I think there's going to be a bit of a drop off. Of course, Michael Elise leaving is a big thing. Of course, Eze, is the thing is I've always said if you take Elise out of the picture, you get half an Eze, and vice versa. I think it's going to be a season of transition. I don't think they're going to ever be in any relegation trouble. But I think, personally, they are going to be probably bottom half. Everybody agree, or
no, top half?
Top half?
Yeah,
Gotta be top half.
Top half.
Yeah.
There we go. The Eagles have soared into the top half then. So it's my turn again. And I'll tell you what, let's talk about our opening day fixture, our opponents. Nottingham Forest, a side, of course, that was promoted alongside us a couple of years back. Now, what do I think of Forest? I think Steve Cooper did a fantastic job with them, an excellent job with them. Of course, Nuno Espirito Santo, of course, former Wolves manager, has come in. He did an excellent job at Wolves, to be fair. And I think he's a very good manager. But the problem is with Nottingham Forest is that they have this big turnover of players. They've got very big squads that I don't think they've ever found, and I don't think Nuno is aware of who the best team is. As well as that, I think the players that they've signed aren't particularly very good. You probably guess where I'm going with this, but in my honest opinion, they're a side. I think they're going down. I honestly think they're going down this season. Matt, Manny, take it away. Do you agree with me, or do you think that Forest will be okay?
Yeah, just very quickly from me. Another side that I think will probably struggle, in all honesty, the more I think about it. And definitely in the just surviving bracket or in the relegation bracket for me, I'm happy to go with whatever you two decide.
Manny?
And as usual, I break the tie and say that they are going down.
Going down.
Yeah. You know, there's a saying, bovine manure may get you to the top. It won't keep you there, at least not for very long. And this team, again, has had so much good fortune. It's literally scary. At times, they've been very unimpressive. This season, they are ripe to go down. Believe you me.
I don't like them very much either, so there we go. Bye, Forest. Moving swiftly on, and we're back to Matt. Who are you picking, Matt? Ooh, Aston Villa.
Villa.
Take it away.
I mean, great season, wasn't it? Great season. And, you know, it's great to see European, well, they obviously won the European Cup, didn't they, during the 80s, early 80s. So it's great to see Champions League football back at Villa Park. And I think they've got a great squad. But the thing I'm questioning is the whole European and can they get top four again places? I mean, they dealt with it really well last season. I'm really on the fence with Villa. I'm not too sure because they dealt with it so well last season by playing Thursday nights and playing Sundays and that they managed to break into the top four as well. And I don't think anybody... I think that's where we went on the tier list last year. We thought that they would finish decent, but the European side it would take its toll, which it really didn't on them, did it? Because they broke into the top four, and it was great to see a different club in the top four, similar to the season before with Newcastle. So I definitely pushing for a Europa League place at least, I think, for these guys. But can they do top four again? I think is questionable.
I think that they did an outstanding job, and I really like Aston Villa as a football club. I really do. I think personally, it's going to be very difficult to replicate that, especially with the Champions League games. But I honestly think they're going to have a quite good season. Manny, what do you reckon?
This is going to be a tough one for me because I have a huge soft spot for them. Obviously, you know, Emery, of course, managed Arsenal, and I think, you know, we're obviously going to take a look back the two games we played against Villa, and say that Emery and Arsenal old boy Martinez were responsible for mucking up our title challenge. After all the good work we did, taking 4 points away from City, we were, you know, top of the tree. Everything was rosy in the garden, and then it was the old boys who came back to town and took and destroyed us. And Emery obviously, you know, has had several points to prove, and he won 6 at our expense, obviously, and he's got this team really playing a good brand of football. The only issue I had last season was the quality of their squad. And I believe that as well as they started, you know, they say, well begun is half done. They wouldn't be able to sustain it given the quality of their squad. And then they ended up having, they lost their pristine, unbeaten record at home and ended up losing games that they probably should have won. But he's also seemed to have instilled a kind of toughness in them, in that whenever they lose a game, they end up winning the next one. And this time around, we talk about the European sojourn. We talked about how Eddie Howe struggled with Newcastle United. But Unai Emery, with all due respect to Sir Eddie, is streets ahead of Eddie Howe as a manager. And Emery will also know fairly well about how to balance the joint commitments of managing in Europe and also managing in a domestic league, having done that with Villarreal and, of course, with Sevilla back in Spain. And, of course, it's a different kettle of fish. And in his first season with Arsenal, he got us to 5th in the league and the Europa League final. Things just slightly fell apart near the end, but for some reason, people saw it fit to get rid of him. I think this time around, he's got some great backing. I think the squad really looks good. Whether or not they will replicate their feat of finishing in the top 4, I really can't see that happening, because the other big teams with most of the big teams, I have to say, have strengthened quite well. And it will be interesting to see how this particular team does. But they should definitely finish in the 5th, 6th, and 7th bracket and should secure Europa League football. And don't be surprised, gentlemen, if they end up having a really, really good Champions League run. Because, with Watkins starring in the Euros and Martinez proving his value again in the Copa America, obviously you've got Ross Barkley coming in and, Ian Maatsen coming in from Chelsea by way of Borussia Dortmund and the Champions League final himself. I think this squad could very well do some good things under Emery this season. Had a choppy pre-season, but, pre-season isn't a barometer for success in the league, as we all know. I'm going to have them finishing as high as 6th, and I will look to see them possibly making the Champions League quarterfinals, because, I really would love to see how an Emery team would do in Europe, and he has a knack of really getting the best out of his teams whenever they play in Europe.
You echo my thoughts entirely, Manny. And I honestly think that they'll probably finish in 6th spot. So here we are, the first one. Matt, do you think in Europe, in that 5 to 7 category?
I totally agree with everything Manny said. Absolutely, totally agree with everything Manny has said. I'd place them in the 5 to 7 bracket, but above West Ham.
Above West Ham.
Yeah, and don't be surprised if Villa go on to win a cup or two this season, either the FA or the League Cup. They need some silverware.
Yeah, definitely. Right, I guess it falls down to myself again, and I'm going to pick...
Well, wait, it's my turn, though, isn't it?
Oh, it is your turn. Sorry, I jumped the gun.
Manny,
who are you picking?
I'm going to go with a team that has now had another addition to the ex-Gunners club, Fulham. Emile Smith-Rowe having joined them in a club record deal. And it's a huge leap of faith, really, from the club to take a punt on a player who, is still very much beloved by everyone at Arsenal, but, was just too injury prone and wasn't really going to get a fair chance under Mikel Arteta. We were hoping that he'd leave, and I can't wait to see him, shine. There was a part of me that thought and hoped that he would join Emery at Villa, because Emery absolutely loved the bloke, but maybe there's a sense that Emery wants to try to move on from his former Arsenal charges, with the exception, of course, of the likes of Martinez. And, Smith-Rowe wanting to stay in London, Fulham was the best choice, and he can now share some war stories with his fellow ex-Gunners, Bernd Leno, Alex Iwobi, and I don't know if Willian Borges is still at the club, but if he is, then, good for the Brazilian. He's enjoying an Indian summer back in the capital. And this is a team as well. They finished 13th last season, but there was some talk of how well they were playing and how they could also compete for Europe. And obviously with Smith-Rowe and Sessegnon coming in, you've got a sort of a North London rivalry there, but now they're teammates at the Cottagers. And they still managed to, for the most part, retain a pretty good core of players. You feel for the likes of Marek Rodak, of course, who, was pretty much shunted down the pecking order after Bernd Leno came in and has now left the club so that Leno can take the number 1 jersey. But Rodak at least had the consolation prize of going to the Euros as Slovakia's number 2 behind Newcastle's Martin Dubravka. And I think Dubravka will probably leave Newcastle, but we'll talk about that later. But Fulham are also doing their bit to try to assemble a really, really good team. And this is a team as well which should be able to possibly compete for Europe. But again, it'll remain to be seen whether they can finish high enough. I'm going to sort of take a plunge here and say that they will finish ninth behind Crystal Palace because they're also going to continue to try to punch above their weight. I expect them to have one or two good cup runs. No European football for them, obviously, which would have been a bit of a disappointment. But I wouldn't be surprised if they challenge them really well and finish ninth. And they're going to keep building, obviously, a lot more. So ninth for me, and I will definitely be looking to see how well Smith Rowe plays. And if he does come back to the Emirates and score against us, and Fulham, heaven forbid, end up taking points off us like they did last season to the tune of 4, then, a lot of people are going to take a look at Mikel and say, what have you done? That's another one you've let slip through our fingers and who's come back to bite us where it hurts. Ninth for the Cottagers.
I think this is one that could go either way. I've actually got them quite a bit lower than what you have there, Manny. But Matt, where do you think they're going to end up? Because I've got them, in the category of just staying up. Manny's got them within the top half. Are they going to be bottom half, or what? Where are you placing them?
I think this is where all three of us could be split because I don't think they'll finish as low as that. But potentially they might not finish as high as what Manny thinks, but they possibly could. I mean, they've added to their squad very well each pre-season since they've come up. So I'd probably sway more towards Manny than I would yours, in all honesty.
Okay.
I personally think they would finish top half of the bottom half, but they could. If they keep everybody fit, Smith Rowe hits the ground running.
Yeah.
They could have a very good season, like Manny has said. Yeah, this is a difficult one because, I can't agree with you on that one, Craig. I don't think they'd be just surviving. Is that where you're thinking?
Yeah.
No.
I've got them down as 15th.
Let's go with where Manny says top half for now. We can jig it if we need to, but definitely not that low.
Top half. Below Palace, though.
I would say for now below Palace. I mean, I see where Manny's coming from. I agree more towards Manny's argument than yours on this one.
Fair enough. I'd
like to say I had them top half of the bottom, sort of 11th to 14th, probably 11th in all honesty. But yeah, we'll go with there for now, I reckon. I think that's a good compromise.
Well, it's my turn, and I'm going to pick somebody that is very, very popular at Dean Court. He likes tapping his watch. They don't know what's going to be happening with Ivan Toney. Any guesses? Of course, it's Brentford. And of course, Thomas Frank's side. This is a very, very interesting one because I personally, even though they beat us, I personally thought Tony was disinterested. There's a lot of talks of outgoings in London. So I honestly think this is a team that is going to be right up against it from day one. Are they one of the 3 worst teams in the league? I don't think they are, but they're going to be very, very close, and it could swing either way. And I'll say this about my predictions. When I was doing my predictions, from probably 13th downwards, I think it's going to be incredibly tight anyway. But Matt, Brentford, let's take out the, how funny it would be to see Thomas Frank having a cry. But, do you think that Brentford are one of the 3 worst teams in this league, or do you agree with me that they're going to be fighting to stay up, or are they going to do something, even better?
Do you know what? This one, for most of pre-season, I thought are going to struggle or potentially get relegated. The Tony saga's got to end for them at some point because it's not
Yeah.
just the manager, the squad, to have. To be honest with you, I thought the Tony saga would have been finished before the Dom Solanke saga, but obviously
Yeah, I did.
that's not the case. But I think they've also added really well.
Mm-hmm.
And have you both seen who they've signed this week from Liverpool?
Mm-hmm.
Great player. Now, before he was signed, I was definitely in the just surviving bracket. But one player doesn't change a squad. But yeah, it doesn't look likely they're going to have Tony. Like you say, when we saw him play at Dean Court at the end of the season, he looked totally disinterested. He didn't look like the Ivan Tony that you'd expect to be up against. He wants the move, doesn't he? But it seems to have all gone quiet on who wants him now, hasn't it? So, I mean, I think if they were to keep Tony, and with what they've added, they're going to be all right. If they lose Tony, but then again, they did all right without him last year to a certain degree. They were scoring goals and
I think they want to shift him.
For me, I think.
I think they want to shift him because at the end of the day, a sulking player is no good for morale.
Totally. Yeah.
So,
but yeah, just surviving. I think for me, I'll go with my head on this one. Just surviving.
You agree with me, Manny? Do you agree with me?
Yeah, I'd probably agree. And I mean, again, as you said, the whole Tony saga will could potentially be something that could affect the club. If the sooner they move him on, the better. And having signed the Liverpool striker, though, I think you think that they'd be able to try and move forward, but again, I'm not too sure how well they'll do. And I think the thing about teams like Brentford who punch above their weight for seasons in succession, there's going to be one season where they end up, just falling short. They won't get relegated, though, because they do have enough about them. But I'm with you, boys. I think it'll be a case of just avoiding relegation in that 15 to 17 bracket.
Fair enough. Are they higher or lower than Wolves? Here we are. This is a bit of Bruce Forsyth.
I'm going to go so far to say that they will be lower than Wolves.
Lower than Wolves. I agree with that. Matt, do you agree? Lower than Wolves?
No.
Tough. You've been outvoted on this one.
I think they would be higher than Wolves, personally.
Fair enough.
I think it will go probably Brentford, Ipswich, Wolves as it stands there.
Interesting. But Manny, you've got them where I've got them, which is literally just surviving.
Yep.
Fair enough. We'll see. We can always change this at the end, but there we are. There's Brentford. Manny. No, sorry, it's back to you, Matt, isn't it? Who are you picking? I'm losing track here.
You know what? Let's just get a big one out of the room because this is quite simple. For me, last year, I backed Arsenal to win the league. I think, if I remember rightly, Manny said I was completely mad, and he proved to be right. They'll win the league again. Simple. End of argument. Next.
Manny, anything to add to that?
The only thing I will add is that, again, Mr. Harrison, as with Mr. Beasley, I would never call you insane. Do not ever think that I would slander you that way.
You're too kind.
It's called being a good guest. Never, ever insult the hosts, even no matter how much you disagree with them. But on this particular occasion, I can agree that City are not losing this league, and when we come to Arsenal, we will take a look why. I also want to say big up to my good friend Carl from the Gun Down UK podcast. In about 15 minutes, he's going to be hosting a stream where they're going to be talking about the pre-season, what we did, what we didn't do, and what we can hope for realistically next season. And I will be hopping onto that once this gets over. But City champions, we cannot look beyond them, I'm afraid.
Well,
Having said that, Pep Guardiola will not stay at City for very long. This should be his last season at the club, especially if, once again, they fail to win in Europe.
I've been outvoted here because I don't think City will win it a fifth time. I don't think they'll win it a record fifth time, but you both do. So that shows me. So I've put them as champions. Of course, we can always rejig this afterwards. Manny, where are you going?
Good question. Leicester City.
This is an interesting one, of course. Our good friend Chris from Leicester Till I Die. There's a lot of question marks over this club. I personally think that they could very well finish bottom of the league if they get a points deduction. They could also very easily survive because I think they do have some quality, but hand on heart on this one, I've got them to go down. Manny, what do you reckon?
Yeah, well, I do seem to remember, Craig, and I'm glad you sort of introduced me here. I do seem to remember saying that I believed that with Leicester, whenever they come back into the Premiership, they always seem to function well as a team, and they do play some very attractive football. And they're another team for whom, the whole will always be greater than the sum of its parts. And the fact that they were able to come up a season after being relegated is really a credit to them. But again, it was basically under Maresca that they came up, and Maresca's now with Chelsea. And why they saw it fit to hire Steve Cooper, again, I have absolutely no idea. I was hopeful that they would stay up, but when we take a look at the tier list we've got right now, I believe we've got Wolves, Burnley, and Ipswich, just staying up. And if I had to sort of choose between Leicester and Ipswich, it would be between one of those two teams that would end up staying in the Premiership. I would love it if both of them would stay, but the problem is if you keep both of them, then another team other than Forest would have to go down. And the question is, who could that possibly be? And you can't really pick any other team in the Premiership that would be so bad to land themselves in relegation trouble. Sadly, I think Cooper will probably be the death of this club. When I say the death of this club, I mean the death of this club in the season. And Leicester are going to fight. They're going to really show some spirit. They will have a points deduction. They will try and fight hard. We also don't know for how long Vardy will be playing, what sort of a role he'll be having. Will he be more of a bit part player this upcoming season? That will remain to be seen. What's the situation with the rest of their squad? Is Danny Ward on his way out? And I really don't think they've replaced Kasper Schmeichel effectively.
Yeah.
So sadly, and I understand that Chris might be watching this, I'm going to have Leicester finishing 18th. It's going to be a struggle from them, and they will definitely fight as hard as they can. But I think they'll just end up falling short. 18th for me.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with both of you there. I mean, just very quickly, I think the pre-season hasn't gone down too well with the fan base. I don't think they've had really any good results. I think they just about beat Shrewsbury in a friendly, and they lost the rest that they've played. So there's a lot of dysfunctional. That's not the word, is it? Dysfunctional. Disgruntled.
Yes.
Leicester fans with the appointment of Steve Cooper. I'll be very surprised if he saw the season out in the role. But yeah, relegated for me, unfortunately. Sorry, Chris, but I think with the points deduction, the current manager they've got, I think they're just set up to fail. But who knows? We might all be wrong, but I can't see it myself.
Yeah.
I agree 100% with Manny's position as well. I think they'll finish above Forest, but I think they'll go down. What do you reckon, Matt? Higher or lower than Forest?
Quite potentially lower. quite potentially lower. Depends on the point deduction, doesn't it? Because you're playing catch up straight from the start, and obviously, you know, everyone who's been associated with Bournemouth for a long time know what coming back from a points deduction is like. So it's never an easy thing. So yeah, I think for me their positioning is going to depend on really how many points they're deducted. But I think they could potentially finish lower than Forest, but we'll see. We'll jig it if we feel need to.
Definitely. Well, I tell you what, it's my pick next, and I think we should pick ourselves. So let's go with Bournemouth and discuss how we're going to do. So very, very, very exciting season ahead of us. Of course, Andoni Iraola has, and no doubt we'll talk about some of the new signings, some of the rumours that are going, because they are very, very, very creative. So I'm very optimistic next season. Matt, how do you think? What do you reckon?
Cautious as always. I think obviously with what we've added to the squad's been good. Obviously losing Dom's been massive, but with the potential signing we've got coming in from Porto, if he settles and gets used to living in this country and gels with the team, he's going to be absolutely awesome. But still cautious for me. We'll improve on last season, but I'm not going ahead of myself. We're breaking to the top half, but for me, it's 10th.
10th. Manny?
You've got to look at other squads. There's so many squads competing. Look at West Ham. Look at Palace. Yeah, that are going to be gunning. Newcastle. We haven't even spoke about them yet. There's a lot of clubs gunning for this European place, and I think last season I think I made the argument for 13th last season, and we finished 12th. So my theory is if I make the argument for 10th this season, we might finish 9th or 8th. Who knows? But yeah, I think not to get too carried away. I think will be a mistake. But we're gonna have a good season again. No way we're gonna be near the relegation. I can't see it. But yeah. A good little progression on from last season.
I honestly think I've put us in 9th. I think Europe would be incredible. I put it to Harry Redknapp. I said, "Do you think Europe's possibility?" He said, hold back a little bit." Of course. So I've got to agree with Harry here. I don't think Europe, but steady progression, like you say, Matt, is what we're after. So yeah, I'm thinking 9th, and I would go. Let's just get this back up. I'm going in between. Of course, that top half is a little bit different in my mind, but I would put us in between Crystal Palace and Fulham based on what we've done. What do you reckon?
10th for me.
10th, you think below Fulham?
I'm sticking with 10th. I'm sticking with 10th. Like I say, I didn't think, I thought Fulham 11th. But me, from a Bournemouth perspective, I'm thinking 10th. And a lot of people might be watching this thinking that's crazy.
Yeah.
When you look at stats and something that we'll look at when we've done our tier list very, very briefly, Bournemouth's nowhere near there. So I think, you've got to be cautious. I think if we finish 10th next season and have a couple of good cup runs, again,
great season,
good progression. And that's, Bill Foley wants Europe. We all know that. He's made that very, very clear. He wants Europe, but he also knows Rome wasn't built in a day.
Yeah.
And the club has moved on massively under his ownership. And, good steady progression for me.
I think it's just good that we're in that position.
Yeah. I mean, look at the clubs ahead of you. I mean, Villa, West Ham. And West Ham have brought in some tremendous players that are going to add to that squad.
Yeah.
Palace, like Manny was saying, fantastic manager. There's a lot of competition in this league. And I just think that would be great if we finish. Obviously, we get Europe and we excel. We do get Europe
Yeah.
next season. Absolutely amazing. That's the pinnacle to achieve for next season, isn't it?
Oh
But
yeah.
would we be happy finishing 10th now at the end of come May?
Oh yeah, definitely, 100%. But I just think we could finish above both of those two teams beside us, so above Palace and Fulham. Manny,
Fulham, I'd agree with, but then again, like
mhm,
I say, I think Fulham would finish 11th. But yeah, let Manny see what he thinks.
I'm afraid I'm going to have to sort of side with Mr. Harrison here, Mr. Beasley, and have Bournemouth in 10th. And it's going to be progression for them, as both of you will agree. A higher finish in the table, hopefully another cup run. And the thing about it, though, is that now that we've got the 8th to 10th positions pretty much solidified for now, you could see in the end Fulham and Bournemouth interchanging. But I think Bournemouth obviously are going to try and look to improve as well. They can't afford to have a dreadful start to the season like they did last time around. But if they can keep that start well, then they should finish in the top half. But 10th for me, no higher or lower than that.
fair enough. Well, where are we going next, Matt? To God's location. Of course, Eddie Howe, God. So, yes, Newcastle finished 7th last season. Take it away, Matt. I think, was it a disappointing season, or do you think it is a season that was probably expected after what was remarkable?
Don't forget, he had a lot of players out injured, didn't he?
Yeah.
And then balancing, and like Manny said, he's not as experienced in European. Well, obviously, nowhere near as experienced in European football as someone like Emery at Villa.
Mm.
So to lose that amount of players that he lost as well, I think for where they finished last season, it was great.
Yeah.
And again, I think they're going to finish in and around there this season. I think they've added well to the squad. Obviously, Kelly, who we know all too well, how will get the best out of that guy. If they manage to get the Mark Gay deal across the line, which they've rejected a third bid now, as it stands. If they get him in the side, which is a priority for them to get a right-footed centre back in, that will strengthen them massively.
Mhm.
So they're going to have a good season again. And this season, without Europe, they've got the 3 competitions that they can fully focus on with a decent squad. So I would imagine don't think they're breaking to the top 4 again like they did a few years ago, but they would definitely be competing in that sort of Europa League area, similar positioning to last year. But yeah, I think the biggest thing for Newcastle, and I think what will really cap things off for Eddie there. That's if he's still there and he doesn't get the England job, which I can't see.
Well, exactly.
But if Eddie's still there at the end of the season and he manages to win him a trophy, then he will be. I mean, he's already loved up there anyway. I mean, he would just be. That'd be it. Be the most amazing thing. So I think, yeah, I'd love to see Newcastle win a cup and come a steady sort of position in the league as last season.
I honestly think that they'll finish 5th. I think they'll do better than last season. I think that the distractions will be off, and they'll be able to really focus. So I think it'll be an improvement. I don't think they'll get the Champions League places, but I think an improvement, and therefore 5th spot. I would place them in this tier list above Villa and West Ham.
Big call, big call, because we do have some pretty big teams to talk about.
Yeah.
And this could very well be one of those instances where, we sort of rejig the tier list a little bit. Because obviously you've got the top 4, the next 3 best teams, and then 5th to 7th, we've got 2 in already. And so we're talking about Newcastle, right? Newcastle are a team, obviously, that will love to improve. And they've made some signings already. I think they would have also had to go to get rid of a few players. I'm a little bit surprised that Martin Dubravka is not one of those that they've opted to get rid of, because with Lakodimos and Nick Pope there, I really don't see the Slovakian, who had a more than decent Euros with his national team, do to get that much in terms of playing time, and he wouldn't want to stay there as the third goalkeeper. So in terms of where Newcastle are going to end up, it could very well be that they end up possibly fighting with Crystal Palace and Fulham and company for a spot in the top half of the table. Could they make the fifth to seventh Europa League places? I think they probably could end up finishing as low as seventh, which will guarantee them Conference League football. But I don't see them really finishing much higher. And even West Ham, as we speak, could also be subject to some rotation.
Mm-hmm.
So I could have Newcastle finishing as high as seventh for now.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Seventh for now.
Seventh for now. I had them as fifth, but I've been outvoted, so they go below Villa and West Ham. Manny, where are you going?
Where am I going? Where am I going? Where am I going? Depends on what teams are left, and I think it's those 7 teams that are currently left, right?
Yes.
So
yeah,
it's time for me to create some controversy and take another trip to West London, this time with Chelsea.
This is going to be difficult because, of course, wow, Chelsea. I just well, Todd Bowley. I just don't know what's going on there. Manny, take it away. What do you make of Chelsea?
Why Maresca saw it fit to move to Chelsea, I will never know. And one thing you can guarantee with Chelsea is that they will always have a knack of being able to sign some really good players. They've obviously welcomed in Dewsbury Hall from Leicester and Neto from Wolves. Palmer last season was an absolute hit. But Maresca's challenge will be to try and get the best out of some players who were very highly rated but didn't really deliver last season. The likes of Enzo Fernandez, Mikhailo Mudryk to an extent, also Moises Caicedo. He also has a situation where he has about 8 goalkeepers currently on the books, although a couple of them I think are youth goalkeepers. Another 1 or 2 will be leaving maybe. And he still has to shore up that defense with Thiago Silva having left to move back to Brazil and join Fluminense quite some time ago. And this Chelsea team are actually, I actually could see them flattering to deceive in many more ways, because, again, how will Maresca be able to bring his style of inverted football to a Chelsea team and really get the players he has at his disposal performing to that? I know that Cole Palmer and Sterling have some experience with that, having played under Guardiola at Manchester City. But with Maresca, again, it's going to be difficult for him, and he will be on a hiding to nothing. And of course, last season Chelsea did have a fine recovery to finish fairly higher than expected in the league. They should have secured a Europa League place, but then Manchester United beat them to it by shockingly winning the FA Cup. And of course, this season they will have the Conference League, where they will be expected to do very well. But as the likes of Leicester and Aston Villa have found out, that is not an easy competition to win, especially once you get to the latter stages. If I can see the tier list again and just take a look at where Chelsea could possibly finish.
Yeah.
I do not believe that they will be in the running for the Champions League places. No, that is firmly with 3 other teams. We all know who they are. And they're certainly not going to finish in the bottom half of the league, given the quality that they have. But again, if Maresca doesn't hit the ground running and really start to get his Chelsea players performing, then it could be another season of underachievement. And I actually might have them, finishing in the top half, but in the 8 to 10 region, which means that one of those teams is going to have to be brought down. And I'm actually going to go so far to say that Bournemouth might end up slipping to 11th, but it will still be a bit of an improvement from 12th. So you'll have to move Bournemouth into the bottom half, above Everton, and put Chelsea in that top half.
We can overload categories for the moment because it's not set in stone, but I personally think Chelsea will finish 8th. Matt, what do you reckon?
Yeah, I mean, it's like Manny said, they've got to hit the ground running, and if things don't work out with the manager, it's going to be, which again, I agree with Manny, why he's in there. It's beyond me. He had such a good thing
Yeah.
going at Leicester, apart from sort of like it did drop off towards the end of the second half of the season, but he did get the job done and they were champions.
Mhm.
Yeah, this is a difficult one now. I'm still going to stick my neck on the line and say Bournemouth for finishing 10th.
Mhm.
But who comes out of the Europa places? Newcastle or West Ham? Can't see it being Villa because Villa, whether they will finish 5th, they're definitely come between 5th and 7th. But it's who comes out of the European places to put Chelsea there. Is it not worth maybe having a look at a few others and then jigging?
Yeah, what we'll do is we'll overload the top half section and then we'll play higher and lower at the end, and we'll go probably from the bottom to the top, I think, because that's the way. I think last season we did it the other way round, didn't we? But I think this time, I think it
Okay.
might be better to go from bottom to top.
Who's
Uh,
who's picks next? Sorry.
I'm trying to think now.
I believe it's you, Matt, because
Yeah,
you're after me.
you're right, Manny.
Yeah,
Bang.
go on,
Right.
Matt.
Arsenal. Yeah, I think Manny will probably have a massive thing to say on Arsenal. I'm just picking them to get another big side out of the way, to be honest. Top 4, but where exactly? I'll let Manny have his say.
Take it away,
I've
Manny.
I've got them finishing 3rd. It's not going to be an improvement on 2nd because, as I will be discussing with Carl and Bertie from Guna Gathering on their stream in a few minutes, once we get done with this, we've had a pretty poor pre-season in terms of getting players to sort of join our club. I believe we've got Calafiori, the Italian from Bologna. There has been some talk about getting Marino in, and he'd be a fine acquisition. But and again, there's also some talk about how by overspending on Declan Rice, we pretty much made a rod for ourselves financially. We've secured David Raya. I do believe that we will be letting Aaron Ramsdale go out on loan, although there has been some talk about keeping him so that he satisfies the homegrown quota. I just don't believe that the work we've done in the transfer window will merit us, really, challenging for the title this season. I have us finishing as low as 3rd, and the sad part is it could be as low as 4th. Don't get me wrong, I would love to see us, challenge again. I'd definitely love to see us win it again. But, it's going to be 5 full seasons with Arteta. Still no trophies apart from that half-season FA Cup win. We're starting to get impatient. 3rd for me, I'm afraid.
Well, do you know what? The Arsenal fan in this room has actually got Arsenal the lowest because I've got you winning the league again. How many times have I said that?
No, I think they blew it last year. I think last year was the time to knock City off their pedestal. No, totally disagree. I'm happy with 3rd. If
Third,
that's what the Arsenal fans going with, I'm going to agree with him on this one.
fair enough. Fair enough. I've lost track of who's next. Is it you, Manny, or is it me?
No, it's you, because obviously Mr. Harrison's got his big club out of the way. And
I'll tell you what, let's go. Well, there's 2 other teams in there, of course, apart from Liverpool, Man United, and Spurs. I'm going to go with the Seagulls. So Brighton. This is an interesting one. This is where we might be overloading things. The manager, who is he? Harry Redknapp even said that. Of course, he come from St Pauli. Did quite a good job
He
in
said,
St Pauli.
he said at 31 he should still be playing, not managing.
Yeah, exactly. Brighton, they're very, very good. They got a great recruitment system there. You've got to say that Tony Bloom has probably done his homework on this guy, and he's probably going to be good. But there's always that nagging doubt. Last season, of course, there was a bit of a drop off. I think in parts last season they were very good. They weren't very good when they come down to Dean Court that day. We resoundingly beat them 3-0, and well deserved those 3 points. I hand on heart think that Brighton are probably going to be. I actually think bottom half. I think bottom half. But to be fair, from where they've come, I think that would be a good result. Quickly on this one, Manny, do you think that bottom half next to Everton is where they belong, or do you think that they might actually creep into that top half category?
I mean, I personally think very quickly that they're a great model of a club, Brighton,
Yeah.
and they've always appointed well managers. They've got great recruitment, but I'm not sure on this guy, and I think that's because we don't know a lot about him. So, I personally think bottom half.
Bottom half, higher or lower than Everton?
Higher than Everton.
Manny?
Agree with Matthew here. Agree with Matthew. Very much an unknown entity. I know we said the same thing about a few other managers, including a few we know, but Brighton are always going to find a way to punch above their weight. So, all good.
Fair enough. Well, Brighton are flying into, at this moment in time, 11th spot, although we have got, a little bit of an overload in the top half there. So one of those is going to drop out. But, Manny, where are we going next? We've got 4 teams.
Are you sure it's me who's next, or is it Matthew who's next?
I don't know, to be honest. I've just completely lost track of it all. Oh, there we go. We didn't want to say the name. And actually, do you know what? What's great as well is he's misspelled wrong as well. Southampton. So, yeah.
Yeah, you got the ham there. It's definitely not kosher or halal, one would say.
No.
No, to be honest, I like that. Of course, our friends down the M27, they've bought back Adam Lallana. They've made some
Southampton. That's funny.
Southampton. Yeah. I think they're going to be in last spot, even though I do think Russell Martin's a decent manager.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think, they have added to the squad, but it's realistically the same squad to a certain degree that they went down with, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, they've got Che Adams now as well.
Yeah.
I'm not sure who they've brought in terms of a striker.
Brooks is here. Rodwell's not there.
No, so Alana, I mean, I'm not being funny, but it's a swan song for Alana, isn't it? He's gone back to finish his career where it started. Well, it started at Bournemouth, effectively started at Bournemouth as a kid, and obviously went to Southampton during his youth days. Relegated, and I'm not just saying that because it's Southampton. I'd much rather Southampton stay up in some aspects because it's a nice, easy away day. But and like you say, Russell Martin, I think he's a good manager. So yeah, no, relegated for me, unfortunately.
Yeah, 100% for me. Manny, quickly, Southampton, are they going back down?
Yes, they are. They are. Nothing much to discuss here, I'm afraid.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, we've stuck them in 20th spot at the moment. Of course, we'll play higher or lower, but I don't think they're going to be moving very far. Shall we go with the next team? And oh, well, of course, there we are. That's how it looks. Let's go with. Who do you want to go with first? We'll do it as a joint thing now. We've got 3 top teams: Liverpool, Man United, or Spurs. Just whoever shouts first, we pick them.
Spurs.
There you are, Spurs. Yes, and of course Dominic Solanke's new club. Finished 5th last season. To be fair, early on in the season, I thought that they would compete. I honestly did. But let's be fair, it just fell apart.
I love Ange's pose in that picture. It's great, isn't it?
Yeah. He looks like what's it called? I'm trying to think of the word. From Popeye.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Go on, take it away, Matt. What were you going to say?
Yeah. This is where obviously we're gonna have to do some serious jigging now. Dom's gonna go in there. Dom will score goals for him.
Yeah.
He is an Ange kind of striker. Fits into how he likes to play. Do they break into the Champions League this year? That's the question. Do they break into the Champions League this year?
I got my thoughts on this. Manny, do they break into the Champions League?
I actually think they might.
Mm.
I think they might.
Yeah.
They do, of course, have Europa League football this season, but having survived the first full season at the Tottenham Stadium, Postecoglou obviously will want to try and, stamp his mark further and really make sure that he, builds a team more in his own image. Solanke is definitely an inspired buy, but again, he's going to have to make sure that his defense is in good working order. And if he can do that, then I wouldn't be surprised if they go one better than last season. They were in a good position to actually secure that Champions League spot, but then they also imploded in their own way. And this time around, I think Ange is going to want to try and improve them to be much better than they were. So I've got them. I'll have them in my top 4.
Same here.
Yeah.
I've got them in my top 4. I've got them 4th. Matt, do you agree with that?
I agree with that. Yeah.
There we are. So they'll go next to Arsenal for the moment, but of course, Manny thinks that they'll stay next to Arsenal because Arsenal finished 3rd. I think that there'll be a team in between them. But let's go with. I'll tell you what. Let's throw a whole spanner in the works now because there's 2 teams there. 2 big teams. Let's go with Manchester United. There you go. You picked it straight away. You knew where I was going, didn't you?
Well, being is because I think this is an interesting one because last season it looked like Ten Hag was out the door, didn't it?
Mm.
Radcliffe is giving him another chance, and they've signed some players. They're making changes. Now, the FA Cup last year, I don't think anybody probably visioned them beating Man City. But they did, and they've added to the squad this season. Now, unfortunately, one of the players that I watched a friendly they played Rangers during pre-season, and the new defender, I think he's pictured there. He was playing, he's injured now, but he was immense in that game. I thought he was a fantastic player. Made a great one-on-one tackle. But where do we place Man United this year? Now, last year we got it terribly wrong, and that was probably my fault, to be fair. Because I thought last season Ten Hag might have done something. Not that I'm bothered where Man United finish anyway. I couldn't care less. But I'm kind of where are they are they 5 to 7, or are they Champions League? I don't think they're Champions League, even with what they've signed. But are they going to finish 8th this season? I think they finish 8th again, and he's definitely out the door, isn't he?
FA Cup saved him. The FA
Yeah,
Cup saved him.
absolutely. I mean, for me, Liverpool is an easy one. We'll have a little discussion on Liverpool, but Liverpool going into the top 4.
Yeah.
I think even with a new manager, I think, he's possibly not going to fix something that isn't broken there and just implement certain things. But Man United, 15 years ago, it would have been easy. Nowadays, it's like, where does Man United fit in this table? I think, personally, hand on heart, it will be 5th to 7th.
We'll overload the category, shall we?
But depends what Manny thinks and you think. But
I've got them 7th.
Yeah, I agree. United will not challenge for the Champions League places. They'll be lucky to try and get into Europe. And they've made some good signings, 2 from Bayern Munich, Mazraoui and De Ligt.
yeah,
And they are going to have to move on 1 or 2 other players. And how Ten Hag will get the best out of that squad will remain to be seen. But as far as Liverpool are concerned, I've got them finishing 2nd. I think, obviously, after the long tenure of Jurgen Klopp, the players are going to be very eager to impress the new manager. And still got that similar core, Alisson, Salah. Van Dijk is going to be key because there's a part of me that thinks that his form has actually dipped of late with both Liverpool and the Netherlands national team. And so the gaffer, Arne Slot, his fellow Dutchman, will definitely look to try to crack the whip and make sure that he gets his skipper back to form. And some of the other players as well. I think of Andrew Robertson, who will also need to step up a little bit more. But Liverpool have a strong squad, still maintain their core. Trent Alexander-Arnold will have a key role to play next season, as will Joe Gomez. I don't see Trent continuing at right back, though, unless Slot sees otherwise. But Liverpool should finish 2nd and provide a strong challenge to Manchester City. And as far as what will happen with the 5th to 7th placings, I can now sort of confidently say that it will be Aston Villa, Newcastle and Manchester United, while West Ham go down a slot.
Oh, interesting. Well, I think I agree 100%. Liverpool going to that top 4. And I think my opinion is that they would go into 3rd. Where do they go? Do they go into 4th, 3rd, 2nd?
I mean, you can put them 3rd if you like. I would put them 2nd, but if you think 3rd's the best option, then
What do you reckon, Matt? Matt's going to go 4th now.
For me, my head is telling me 2nd.
Okay.
Because I don't think Manny's got a lot of confidence in Arsenal being any higher than 3rd, and I don't think Tottenham, who may surprise us and finish 2nd. So I think as we've got the champions and top 4 category done, I would say that is done. I think it's now time to look at the other tiers.
Right. I'll tell you what, let's make it big for a second. So we are in the background. We're going to play higher or lower. He's like Bruce's Price is Right, or was it Play Your Cards Right, or whatever it was. Yes, okay, you know what I mean.
Play your cards right, wasn't it?
Play your cards right, that was it. Right. We're going to start with the relegated teams. So it's either higher, lower, or stick. Let's start off with Southampton, 20th spot at the moment. Higher, lower, or stick?
Stick.
Stick. Matt? Sticking with them. In 20th?
I think personally Leicester City will be 20th.
Ooh.
And that's
outvoted.
Only purely because of the points deduction.
Fair enough. No, that's fair enough. To be honest, I can understand that.
Because I'm not being funny, If we think they're going to be relegated and they're going to be chasing points already, yeah, I personally think that would work out as Leicester, Southampton, and Forest as it sits as it is. But personally, I wouldn't have Forest in there. It'd be Wolves.
Fair enough. Wow. So Southampton 2-1. Me and Manny think stick. They're sticking there at the moment. But Forest, Nottingham Forest, are they going above Leicester
Above.
or above? What do you reckon, Manny?
I'd say above Leicester then.
Above Leicester, right? So those two swap places. They swap places. So our bottom three are that. However, Forest do have the chance here of getting out of it. Forest, are they higher or lower than Brentford?
Lower. Sorry.
Lower.
Yeah, lower. Yeah.
Lower. So we've got our bottom three going up to Brentford. Higher or lower than Wolves?
Higher.
What do you reckon, Manny?
Manny's gone.
Well, okay, we'll have to just play it on ourselves then. So I'm saying lower, but I tell you what, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt because, of course, you do think Wolves will go down. Brentford, higher or lower than Ipswich, Matt?
Lower.
Lower. I think lower as well. So Ipswich, 15th spot, that'd be quite good. Although they could go into that bottom half. Higher or lower than Everton?
Lower than Everton. They stay where they are.
Yeah, lower than Everton, 100%. Everton, higher or lower than Brighton?
Lower.
Yeah, I think lower as well. Brighton, higher or lower than ourselves?
Lower.
Yeah, I agree. Lower. Now, AFC Bournemouth, let's leave our bias at the door. Higher or lower than Fulham?
Just had a message from Manny. Internet's mucking me up, boys. So Manny might not be back.
No
so
problem.
Fulham higher or lower than Bournemouth?
Yes.
I had them lower. I had them 11th in the bottom half.
Yeah, same here. So we'll go above and Fulham will drop into the bottom half then for the moment. So this is the first time. Are we going to be higher or lower than Crystal Palace? Come on, are we going to be bold and put ourselves above Palace? I tell you what, I'll go first. I think we're going to finish higher.
Because you said 9th, I said 10th. And I said I'm going to stick with 10th.
Mm-hmm.
Let's put Bournemouth higher than Palace. And people are probably going to think that's mental.
Okay. At the end of the day, we're giving good reason for this. But, of course, I now need to ask, are we going to be higher or lower than Chelsea?
No. We stay as we
Lower.
are. We stay as we are.
I think so
I
as
think
well.
that is Bournemouth place. But do Palace obviously drop into the bottom half?
Well, there is that thing. Fulham, do they finish higher or lower than Palace?
No, they've finished lower, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
So I don't think Palace would finish there anyway, but I think for the purpose of this exercise, it would be Palace 11th, Fulham 12th, Brighton 13th, and then
I'm trying to work
sorry, that's Manny back in there.
I think what we need to do is move Palace down, and then we need to move one of these teams down. There we go. That's it. Right.
No, that's harsh on Manchester United, mate. West Ham need to go there. United stay in the 5th to 7th spot.
Do you think so?
Yeah.
We're playing higher or lower here, but we can move all up and down. But you think swap? I personally agree with that.
No, you've got to swap United and West Ham there. And I think West Ham will probably. So that's an interesting battle. I think West Ham will finish lower than Chelsea there.
We are 10th actually because I made a bit of a mess up. Of course, the bottom half has got 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th in it, so it's got a few more teams in that one. So yeah, my apologies. So United higher or lower than Newcastle?
I'm going to say lower. I think Newcastle are obviously going to be motivated, and finishing above Manchester United would be a real carrot for them.
Do you know what? The top Europe top four and champions, I think, doesn't need to be touched.
I still think Arsenal finish higher than Liverpool, but to be honest, I can't think of many other changes.
I think, to be fair, I think that's what it is. I think that's what we go with. I mean, we've all argued the toss for the clubs. There's clubs in places where, you know, we don't agree as individuals, but we've agreed as a free. Just like we did last year. There's people that are going to be watching this that think we're completely mad. But you know, we've justified the reasons for each club we've picked, and this is how it's turned out after playing higher and lower.
Exactly.
You know, I think Palace will finish higher, and potentially Fulham will finish higher than they are. But you know, I'm sticking my neck out and don't want to put Bournemouth lower than 10th because I think that'd be a good progression for us. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. And we only do this each season for a bit of fun, don't we?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, so anyone that's going to put a funny comment in the box, we do this for a bit of fun and just see, you know, whether we get any of it right. We might be completely wrong. You know, you might see Ipswich, Brentford, and Wolves go down instead of Forest, Leicester, and Southampton. Who knows? But this is just what we think, isn't it? And I think we've not done a bad job between the three of us there, to be honest.
No, I completely agree. And just quickly, this is what Opta Analyst thinks, and again, completely different. So they've got the street
not massively, because Southampton and Leicester we've got to go down, but not Ipswich. They've got Wolves kind of in the position that we've got them in. Bournemouth, we've got
a lot different, yeah.
But then if you look at the other end, they've agreed with you, Craig. City, well, you thought Arsenal would win the league, but
yeah,
I think Arsenal second. Me and Manny disagree. And, you know, they think Chelsea are going to break into the top four. Look where they've placed Villa. We've placed Villa a lot higher than where the stats have placed and the analysis has placed Villa. So I just thought this is an interesting take to have a look at after we've done what we've done.
Yeah, exactly. So that is the Opta analyst. Let's have a look at one other piece. The Premier League manager sack race. Who is going to be first to go? So let's quickly flick through this. Eddie Howe, 5-1.
Yeah, he's 5-1 not to be sacked, but to be the first manager to leave. And this is all due to the speculation of the England job, etc. And this odds from William Hill. All these odds are from William Hill, and were correct as of the 14th of August.
Fair enough. So Eddie won't be sacked, but will leave. But Nuno Espirito Santo, I can't imagine him being England manager. This is probably going to be a sacking.
This is a sack, yeah.
Yeah,
because don't forget their owner is quite happy to sack, isn't he?
He is. He gave Cooper a long time.
Yeah, he did.
Stood by Cooper.
He's got a history amongst his clubs of sacking, hasn't he? I don't know.
He has, yeah.
That's kind of what they were saying anyway about his 8-1 odds.
Let's have a look at the next manager. 8-1, Ten Hag. I honestly think, you know, this is probably the best bet you could have.
Yeah, to be honest. I think that's not a bad bet at 8-1.
I think honestly, for me, I think he'll be the first to go. Steve Cooper at Leicester, 10-1.
You think? I mean, there's a lot of negativity around it already, and if he gets off to a bad start and doesn't win his first 5 to 10 games, is he? And with the points deduction, is he for the chop?
Yeah, it's a good question that. So, yeah, Steve Cooper 10-1. And there we are. There's the rest of them. Fabian Hertzler, that's an interesting one at 16-1. I thought that would have been shorter odds. The main reason being is because he's an unknown, but then again, Brighton do stand by their managers quite a lot. So, that. Will Tony Bloom do that if they get off to a bad start? Areola is on 14-1.
Yeah.
That's very, very short odds, really. Gary O'Neill 12-1. I can understand that kind of, even though personally I think he's a great manager. I think he's done a very, very good job. I think it might be a case where Wolves, they look a little bit depleted. I think they've got enough to get over the line, but at the same time, it could well come back to bite him, to be honest, this season. Marco Silva 12-1. There's some interesting ones in there as well, and Sean Dyche is up there. How will they transition, from Sean Dyche if he leaves? That's another interesting thing, but yeah. I personally think, if you want a bet on this, and of course gamble responsibly, I would say Ten Hag. There you go. There we go. Well, I think that is all we have got time for. We'll be doing lots and lots more shows. We will have our opposition preview shows as well. And of course, Manny is going to be coming on for This Is Football as well. So we'll be discussing lots and lots about all the teams in the Premier League, plus our cherry picking shows as well. So do check those out. Do check out all of our previous interviews as well. So we've had, of course, Omid on the other day. Also, we've had 2 other famous fans in Tiff Nadell. He's, of course, was on Top Gear. So he's Southampton fan. Of course, we had the frontman of Kasabian, or former frontman of Kasabian, Tom Meehan as well, talking about Leicester City. So it's always quite interesting to hear what these clubs, fans of clubs that have just been promoted, say about their chances. But there we go. Well, Matt, looking forward to it. Big kickoff on Saturday. Hopefully get off to a good start. And we're a bit of a bogey team for them anyway, aren't we?
Yeah. I mean, I've got to say, I think we can win that one.
Yeah, no problem. And Manny, thank you again for joining us. And no doubt
Always a
we'll
pleasure.
catch up with you soon.
Definitely. Looking forward to the first weekend and some interesting fixtures. I wouldn't be surprised if we might see a spanner thrown in our works from the first few game weeks of the season. Just never know what'll happen.
Definitely. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. Hit the like, subscribe, the bell button. Do feel free to become a member if you do want to as well. You can click the join button on YouTube and have your name in the credits, and also look at all the different perks as well. But until the next one, up the Cherries. We'll see you soon. Thank you for joining us.
The Talksport Fan Network.
The ultimate on-demand destination for the UK's best fan-led football podcasts.
Want authentic supporter insight on all things Bournemouth? Follow Up the Cherries in all departments on the Talksport Fan Network.
Club-dedicated content created by the fans, for the fans.
Search Talksport Fan Network.